Roseanne, this is Tasmania. Good morning.
When I anchor, I tend to have a trip line with a float on it, and that does a couple of things. One, if it does get hooked in, you can see the yellow float over there, I can hook it with a boat pole, and that trip at the moment is about 5 to 6 metres long, so I usually anchor in about 5 metres. It also means if other boats come in, they can see when the anchors are. And when the wind's blowing, I'll get some idea of how far back I'm stretching from the anchor. So whether it's necessary or not, I don't know, but I find if you've got a bit of a float on there and you're getting other boats coming into the anchorage, if they can see where your anchor is, then they can better estimate where they can go and pop their scope out, and it keeps everybody happy. Just looking at that there too, yesterday was stretching out quite a bit because we were having 20 to 30 knots coming in here, but now I'm sitting almost over the top of the anchor again, and I'm in just over 3 metres, and I've got about 30 metres of chain out. So for me to get all the way back into here, and obviously even though it was 30 odd knots, it didn't stretch out the chain too much, which is good. It was supposed to be a southeasterly today, which should have southwesterly, that should have blown me all the way back up the channel, which is up there where I need to go. But of course, we've got a northwesterly, which will be right on the nose. So lots of tacking today. We're in Great Taylor's Bay. Directly in the middle of us is Huon Island, and right behind it, in the distance, slightly hidden by another mountain, is Mount Wellington, or Hobart. Not a bad day. Would have been nicer with the wind in the right direction, but you know, we've just got to have something to whinge about. Not sure how well you can see it there, but off in the distance, we've got one of the fish farms. They've got all the new seal nets up to try and stop the seals climbing up and sitting on the walkways that are around each of their pens. Don't know how much windage they get on them. Anyway, they're quite happy to spend $750,000 on each of those pens, so that's where you get your salmon from. Meanwhile, still trying to get to Huon Island. It's now 10:30, we've been sailing for about an hour and a half, averaging between 1 and 4 knots, which is a bit, 2 and 4 knots I should say, which is a bit slower than I'd like, but you know, it's a nice day, and what else are you going to do? Still got a nice headwind, as you can see. See what happens when we get out past Partridge Island, which is over here. Might get a bit more breeze up the channel, which will scoot us across above Huon Island and at least get us into the river proper, which will I'll be happy with that. Down there is North Tin Pot, which is just a little bit further out of Great Taylor's than Mickey's Bay, so we were on the other side of that this morning. So not really making a lot of way, but still it's a very nice day to be out. Solar panels, getting a bit of sun on them, help charge up them batteries. The catch rig, it tricks very well. So whenever I get a bit of a breeze comes up, she tends to round up a little bit and then fall off. It sort of maintains a similar sort of direction. But, I think we're going to have to tack at some stage to get past Huon, but we've got to get out past these farms first. Off into the distance is Port Esperance, where Dover is. I'll just zoom in. I'm not real confident on the zoom ability of this old Fujifilm camera. It tends to like to bugger up the focus quite a bit, but anyway, so it's a bit closer in there. Now, fish farm's making noise over there with Partridge Island behind it, and Anderson's Peak in the distance, covered in cloud. Gull doing its thing. Up ahead is Ventinant Point, around the other side of which is the quarries where I was going to head for yesterday. But when I come down past Huon Island, it was blowing 25 to 35 knots and coming from behind, and I was having such a good time with it, I decided to go on a bit further to Mickey's. But that's the place to hide out if there's norwesterly to westerly. Rippling along at 2 knots. You don't like to overdo it. Stress the canvas around here. Looking towards the quarries again on the other side of that. And on this side of the point there's a little bit of a bay which they call Krakatini Bay. It's not marked on the map as that, but that's what all the locals know it as. And looking back down towards Tin Pot and Mickey's. Most of the sails are drawing well, except for the mizzen. I think it's need to pull the outhaul a little bit, but also the boom needs to come down quite a bit more. But unfortunately, with the crutch where it is, or the gallows, if I lower it down much more, then the boom hits the gallows. So sort of going to have it up a little bit, but I think it sort of helps in the slight winds anyway. But it's another project to try and work out what to do with that. Now the mess, got the life raft there with one of those hammer releases on it, and just down here is the galley skylight. Few fenders and things. Now our tender fits on top of the saloon skylight, which is good. That keeps the rain out, keeps the big green water out, but I don't think we'll see much of that today. Hopefully. Oh, we're pointing in the wrong direction again. I better go back and steer the boat. Well, sort of need to go through there, but unfortunately there's a big fish farm in the way. So I've got to decide whether to go around it to the right and then risk getting shaded by Huon Island and getting pushed back onto the lease, or whether I take the track round to the left and and risk getting shaded by Roaring Beach. Either way, it's going to be a long tack before I can get back up past the island, but who knows, I might give up before then and turn the motor on. But we're still doing 1.2 knots flying along here, so that's not too bad. Could be worse, could be in a rowboat rowing. Well, that's about it, I think. It's 11:36. I'm going to be back up to make the tide at about 2, and we ain't going to do that at 0.7 of a knot, so unfortunately have to admit defeat, get the rags down and get the iron sail out. Oh well, it's been nice.